Well, hello,
Well, hello.
Princeton community, to our annual World's Best Workforce meetings that we do to share our progress with the community. And I'm your superintendent, Ben Barton. And it's great to be here with you on this eve of a big blizzard. And my phone's been blowing up for a long time, and we won't be making any decisions on school tomorrow until late tonight or tomorrow. We'll just have to see. Are you gonna take us through some slides? I'm thankful that we have our several of our team members here with us this evening to share their portions of the presentation. I'm not sure if we have people out on Zoom land with us.
No, we're all here.
Okay, so everyone that's presenting here is here, so thank you. We do need to try and be done by 6 p.m. so we will zip through this, and we certainly can entertain any questions at the end or via email or follow-up meetings. But the World's Best Workforce was legislation that was created several years ago, and it's surrounding around 5 key indicators. And I don't know if you've ever paid attention to this document here, which is our continuous improvement plan. But there's a portion of the World's Best Workforce that we do have listed on the bottom of that document. And it is equally as important to all of our other big rocks and desired outcomes. But the focus is on all students being ready for kindergarten. So we'll share some information with you regarding our progress in the last year on that. All students at grade level for reading and literacy by 3rd grade. And that's hugely important. And we're excited to share with you many of the new strategies that we've implemented and are continuing to implement. A close achievement gap of all subgroups is a focus that is part of the World's Best Workforce. And all students graduate from high school and are college and career ready. That's actually 2 goals smushed into one there. So there's actually 5 components related to this. Some of our highlights of this last.
Okay.
No.
Proceed.
I will not proceed because I don't want to steal your thunder. I will pass it over to our Director of Teaching and Learning, Jessica Cowan-Gunderson, and she will take this next slide.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Jessica.
Absolutely. So you will, just to frame this is data from last school year. So in a time when students were returning from pandemic, if you look at data in our nearby surrounding districts, you will see trends anywhere where student learning in both math and reading are trending down between 8% and 20%. And we were not immune to that. Some things that the data won't tell you is despite those numbers, there are some significant good things happening in the district that should be on your radar. One of those things is our work to get our preschoolers ready for K, and we did a huge move last year with our help me, what's the name? Kindergarten Safari. There were jungle hats and everything to bring the preschoolers over to get them ready for K. In addition, our teachers have been deep in learning about the science of reading, and if you're in the loop in national news, this is a hot topic in terms of how America's schools approach reading instruction. And we are lucky to say that we are on kind of the leading end of the shift, the systems shift that's taking a place across the country. So last year, we had our first cohort of kindergarten through 5th grade teachers volunteer for an intense training in letters instruction. It was so effective that I will say our data for kindergartners moving to 1st grade this year already show we're on track for 90% decoders by the time students leave our primary school. So in 1 year with half of our teachers trained, we were able to make a significant impact in those students who started school. The buzz was such that many more of our teachers were interested in the letters training. And so voluntarily, we have 90% of our kindergarten through 5th grade teachers and interventionists involved in that 2-year training now. The other thing worth mentioning is in our intermediate school, we have structured our language arts block so that we're also intentional about science and reading there. So we have a word work section, a reading section, and a writing section in all grade levels. So students are receiving instruction in all 3 pieces of English language arts. Significant changes systematically underway as well in how we approach any students who do not master the skills during their core instruction, and how we give them a second scoop of what they need. So strong work across K-5 in that area. You'll hit the next slide. In our secondary schools, middle school has had very intentional and robust social and emotional learning strategies and instruction for students across grades 6th, 7th, and 8th. So that age, which is most critical, where they're building self-awareness, relationships, social understandings. Our instruction is highly intentional across the grade levels there. And high school has started our career academies. So strong programming available in all 4 buildings here. I'll add that our ALC graduated 23 students last year, which is excellent. So that's some of the behind the scenes information that you won't see in the data charts. All right, so kindergarten readiness, you want to talk, Stephanie?
Yeah, so I'm Stephanie Minder. I'm the early childhood coordinator at Princeton Family Center, our next door neighbor. Brian Julson is the new community ed director who's been helping support everything for this school year. But again, like Jessica just mentioned, this is all data from 2021 to then 2022. So our first goal, as you can see, we use teaching strategies goal as our assessment tool in preschool that helps us stay parent aware rated 4 stars. And for our reading goal, it was on 15A, the target, which is on rhyming, which is something that we intentionally chose because in kindergarten, in 1st grade and 2nd grade, they use something called Hagerty, and we adapted that curriculum into preschool to help make them even more ready for kindergarten. And so in that 15A, in that rhyming, our goal was to increase from 80% to 82%. We met that goal. We actually got 83% of those students ready and met that goal. And just so you know, all of these students are ready to go to kindergarten the following year, so they have to be 4 years old. In our program, we have lots of abilities from 3 to 5. So all of this data is for kindergarten eligible students that following year. So we met that goal, which was super exciting. Andrew, you can go to the next slide. Oh, perfect. Thank you. So, and then the next one was in math, 20C, and that's connecting numerals with their quantities, which is a great skill to get ready for kindergarten with. And our goal was to increase from 73% to 76%, which was a 3% increase. And we did meet that goal with a whopping 88%. That was the data in this beautiful graph. Thank you, Andrea. And we're constantly looking at our program to make sure that we are making all of our students ready for kindergarten. Again, we don't have to get all the students in our district to come to our preschool, but the ones that do, we know that we are making them ready for kindergarten. Thank you so much.
All right, the second check-in point is our 3rd grade reading data. So the goal was to increase from 41% to 43% in 22. The goal was met. Andrea, I don't have a whole lot to say here, but the anticipated trajectory is to get us up above the state then as we move forward.
I'm going to talk about the achievement gap reduction goal. So the achievement gap reduction is looking at different student groups. So this particular goal is looking at the difference between students who receive free and reduced lunch and students who don't receive free and reduced lunch. And what gets tricky on achievement gap goals is you don't want either student group to decrease. So you don't want to close the achievement gap by one student group decreasing, getting closer to the other student group. You want both the increase, but you want the group that's lower to actually accelerate and increase at a faster rate in order for them to catch up. So we have a goal for this in both reading and math. So we're going to look at the math data first. In 2021, the gap was at 19.3%, and then it did reduce to 16.7% in 2022. So we did meet the math goal. You could see that the students who don't receive free and reduced lunch also increased, and so did the students who don't receive free and reduced lunch as well. And then we see for reading that gap actually did increase a little bit. It went from 14.2% in 2021 to 15.5% in 2022. A lot of our work around MTSS, which is one of our big rocks in the district, or multi-tiered systems of support, really focuses in on giving students the interventions they need, those students who are behind academically. And like as Jessica mentioned earlier, we really focused in on our intervention programming to be really honed in on what are those specific skills the students are missing, so that we can really target the intervention to what they need and get them caught up more quickly to their grade level peers. So we have done a lot of work in our district around that, which will help all students, right? But then will also especially help the students who are farther behind. All right, and then the next achievement gap, and this is the comparison for free reduced lunch for both math and reading compared to the state free and reduced lunch. So we are above the state average for that specific population in both reading and math, but I think we want to get them to increase even more as well. So then Steve is going to do the next achievement gap.
So then the achievement gap for special ed, for reading and math, we, again, like Andrea said, we wanted to decrease it, but we did not meet these two goals. So for reading and math, it increased just a little bit in, which one is that?
This was the first one's math.
First one's math. It increased from 20 to 23.8. And then in reading, it jumped up from 28.7 to 31.5. So that gap did increase. Now we know where we are, and you know the intent is to have all of the supports that are in place in order to decrease the gap. So and then the next two slides are the ones that shows the comparisons. We're right at the state average when it comes to for special ed, for reading and for math. So right at the state average.
Barb Buckner, I'm the principal at the high school. The goal was by June 22, past June, percentage of students in that class meeting college readiness benchmarks as measured by ACT will remain within 2%. We expected a decrease. The decrease that we did see on the next slide is significant, but if you'll go back to N, part of the reason for that, it's not the whole explanation, but part of it is in 21, and the number of students who took the test is 115, and in 22 it's 204. That will change results, and if you want to take a look, you can see we did not remain within 2% of the previous year's scores. So we are down in each area, significantly in some, and we have a lot to go on. That was unexpected. The graduation rate, this is a year lag. We don't get official graduation data till January. Is that right, Andrea?
Or even March could be one of the-
Yeah. So we do know that our last year's graduation rate 22, that we have made some gains. So this is a bit lagging. That's just the way the data is. Graduation data always takes a year. So we did not meet the 85% that we were hoping for in the 4-year graduation rate, but this is in 21. This is that COVID year. And the next is the special ed 4-year graduation trends. This is the area that we have been focusing on for several years, and we have been eliminated from the state identification as needing improvement. And you can see how the state line is very flat. Our line changes significantly, and there are some reasons for that, because our number is so much smaller than what the state has. So a different cohort of students will change our data significantly. The low dip there in 2018 or 2018, we remember that year well, and we're very proud of the work that we've done since then. The free and reduced lunch. So I have not looked at this scale very significantly. It's reflective of that student group. And we look at this, but we also significantly look at the whole group. So we did see a decline here. We don't have the explanation for that. We haven't dug into this cohort yet, because we tend to review the all student group.
And then this is the return.
Yes, part of World's Best Workforce is also reporting on making sure that all students have equitable access to excellent teachers. And so the categories to report, we have 0 teachers identified on an improvement plan, meaning needing improvement. We have 44 or 19% of our teachers that have 3 years or less years of teaching. We have 20 teachers that are serving in an out of field licensure. So that might be like 1 hour at the high school and an elective up to a full day in Spanish immersion. And then for racially and ethnically diverse, we do want to keep track of does our teacher population reflect our student population? And so we have 12 staff who identified as racially or ethnically diverse, or 5% of our staff. So that is the report on the data. I think far more important is our plan on what we do next. So as a reminder, our 3 goals in student learning really are to move toward a guaranteed and viable curriculum. Our priority right now and focus is absolutely on integrating science of reading practices K-5 to ensure we have strong readers as the foundation for all. And that will include any of our students who might have missed during their core instruction some skills that are essential to making that happen. Deepening use of Princeton paradigm. So again, revisiting that our daily lesson plans follow our pattern of instruction, our paradigm, and that we are embedding authentic literacy across content areas. And did you want to say anything else as a wrap up?
Well, we believe we have the right game plan, and we believe that if we do the right things, good things will happen. It's really hard to see some of the data that has occurred over the last year. And we're not a place where we want to make excuses, but we also know that there's a reality of a global pandemic and our students not being in school for quite a long period of time. We are to the point where we have a commitment and a sense of urgency that we need to move the needle as it relates to student achievement. Our administration has been fully challenged by me. We talk about it regularly, and they're working with their team members at the sites to move the needle as it relates to student achievement. Trying to set the conditions for learning by focusing on students feeling safe, respected, and like they belong, ensuring and working with their mental health so that they are in a right place to learn. That's hugely important. Having programming that has best practices related to curriculum and instruction is hugely important as well. And then we do collect a lot of data by doing checkups with our students, by having formative assessments, and we use a program called EduClimber, where our teachers have access to where students are, and that's part of our game plan under MTSS, and trying to use data to drive our decision making in the classroom. This year is going to be a real telling point for us, in my opinion. I mean, there's been a lot of distractions, and we're just as if you remember me talking at the beginning of the year, really wanted to have a focus on the basics. Teachers teaching and students learning and keeping all the noise away. And we'll see how we do, but And I'm confident that we're gonna see some great things happening. So.
What questions do you have?
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. That concludes our World's Best Workforce Annual Meeting. And we'll take a short pause until we start our board meeting at promptly 6 p.m.
Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag.
Which is one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we move on to roll call on the agenda, I would like to do two things. One is I'd like to recognize Jim Tomsky. This is Jim's last school board meeting after serving 4 years on the school board. And we want to recognize his service to our community and to our schools.
Thank you.
And present you with a plaque and a clock.
Wow.
Wow. That you can remember us for.
Thank you very much.
That's good.
And then we have a board showcase tonight with our students for destructive decisions, and you can come up. And if you want to speak from the podium, that would be fine.
There's a mic there, but there's no mic. Oh, if you're here, you gotta speak.
Oh, that's fine, that's fine.
Totally.
Come.
Come.
Hello. I'm Pao and I'm the vice president of SAD, Students Against Distracted Decisions. Our president's JC, she's over there. So last year we made this video where we did a little fake car crash and portrayed the people driving in it being unsafe. They were like not wearing their seatbelts and being on their phones. And so we did it in order to submit it to the Sherburne County. They had this Towards Zero Death video contest. And so we won. Because if we're being honest, nobody else submitted a video. And so we thought that was it. And then during the summer, we got an email saying that we got nominated for this Towards Zero Death Emerging Leadership Award. And so after a lot of talking back and forth to the sheriff and this girl who she's in charge of, I think, safety at the U of M, we went back in October to St. Cloud and we talked at a conference. It was the Towards Zero Death Conference. So police officers and engineers from all over the state came to St. Cloud. It was 2 days. And so there were a lot of people. I personally talked in front of 840 people when we were presented the award. And we did some workshops as well to learn. We learned maybe some stuff that we might not be able to apply as a club, but we got the chance to see another school and what they do. And that was really good for us because we came up with a lot of ideas. And so we actually just got approached, I think last week, by the same deputy, and he was telling us about another video thing, as well as possibly wanting to do stuff at the high school to promote safety when we drive. So that's kind of what we're doing right now.
Good. Do you have an award too?
Oh, we do have another. It looks like this. So all the people who were involved in the video, who mostly graduated last year, they got one. Chris, our advisor, she also got one, and the school also has one. So.
All right, we will move on then to number 3, the roll call. Let the record show that all board members are present except Eric Minks. And then we will move on to the truth and taxation report part of our meeting. And Michelle, I think that is you.
Yes, it is, and I'm gonna try and share my screen. See if this works. It did. Okay, let me put this to full screen. Still don't know what happened to the pretty colors that were on my report, but you're gone. Every year we have to give a truth and taxation report. It's required by law. And we usually have it at our December board meeting, the only one that we have, so. And this just states that we're required to have one. We need to talk about the current year budget, proposed property tax levy, and the public must be given time to comment. The state legislator and governor's administration actually establishes the overall tax policy. They have the sole authority to create school levies, and they control the school levy parameters, the formulas. We don't control those formulas. School boards can ask voters to approve an operating referendum, which Princeton does not have an operating referendum approved by the voters. And then we do have a bond referendum, our primary school, and a smaller one from before I was here when they renovated the high school and the intermediate school.
And just want to interject one comment there, because I don't think we can say it enough, is that Princeton Public Schools is one of less than 10% of the school districts in Minnesota that do not have a voter approved operating referendum. And we receive about $2,500 less per pupil unit than the average school district in Minnesota.
So, this chart just says, who collects the money. As you can see, the state collects the majority of state aid through taxes, and school districts, we collect a very small portion of the pie. And then of course we have the the local entities like the counties and the cities. MRE put this together, and then when we go to spend it, we of course become 27% of the pie. We actually are less than the state and the locals, according to this chart. We have multiple school district funds in our budget. We have the general fund, which is the operating that pays for our teaching, our paras, our busing. Then we have the food service fund, which deals with feeding our kids. And then we have the community education fund, which adds preschool and early childhood and rec programs and other programs for kids to learn from. And then we have the building fund, which is usually when we sell a bond. And we have the debt service fund, which is basically our house payment, as I call it. This is our adopted June 22 budget. It was based on less students than what we currently have. We'll also receive a little bit more special education funds that will go into the revenue part. So, and we'll add some expenditures at revised budget time. We revise our budget every year between January and February to become a little bit more accurate in the totals, because it's never changing. It changes due to things like more students. We have about 135 K-8 students that we were not expecting this year, so that'll be nice. Food service, community education each carry their own budgets. The building fund
will actually have a budget. We were supposed to be done spending the LTFM budget that we had in the building fund at the end of 22, but because of delays in projects, we will actually be spending that out here in the fall. So it actually will end in 23. And then, of course, our debt service. Overall, we have a $50 million expenditure budget for the district between all funds. Our general fund is based on student enrollment, local operating levies, special education. We get a few federal grants like title. We also have some COVID funds in the last few years, state programs and participant fees for activities and that type of thing. This is just a nice little chart that shows the revenue disparities between districts. I just did the surrounding districts. As you can see, we basically receive $7,754 in certain pots of money, basic equity, referendum, and optional per student. It's not all of our pots, but it's the majority of the big ones. And we are one of 4 in the area that received that money. 257 school districts received more than that. So we are operating within the parameters of what is set by the state of Minnesota without going out for referendum. This is our enrollment through 22, actual enrollment. As you can see, in 22, we went up about 50 students. 23, when we have this presentation, this line will go up about 135 students. And we'll get closer to where we were in 2018 and 19. We won't be quite there, but it will be much closer than what it is currently, what it was. Because as you see, we went way down in 21. That was planned, though we knew that we were possibly going to lose that enrollment. Then we look at open enrollment. This is also a driver. We are still sending more kids choose to leave our district than stay in our district. But it is kind of leveled out between 21 and 22, and hopefully that stays that way and maybe starts to come down. Food service is based on the federal grant of free and reduced lunch. It's based on student participation. We do receive state aid for that. And the district does not levy dollars for this fund at all. Community education is based on the adult population in the district. Early childhood is based on the number of children under the 5. And of course, they heavily rely on participation fees, and they also have some grants that they do each year. The building fund for 22 and a little bit in 23, we will have the end of our long-term facilities bond that we sold in 2018, I think it was. And then this year we will add the abatement bond to do the parking lots. We did the public hearing and all that happened back in the fall. So that is added to our debt service fund now for payment. But that will be the area of Fund 6 is where we will be spending the money to do the parking lot projects. That money will, well, it goes in there. So at revised budget time, it will be on there. And I'm going to get to the next one. Here we are, school district levy 22 payable 23. Actually affects our 23-24 school year. I do have a separate sheet that shows all of the categories. Don't know if I can. move that up. You see if I'm really good at this. Back to the agenda. It doesn't fit real well on a proposed. We have 3 areas. General education levy, the community education levy, and the general debt. So our proposed levy for the general ed area is 4.7 million, where community education is 326. And our total debt levy request is 4.1, and that does include the abatement bond. And the abatement bond was on the proposed levy in September. And of course, nutrient and taxation report started. So I'll just scroll down fast. All right, so how are your school taxes spent? Our general fund is, which blue is which? Is the dark is 50.9%, debt service is 45.3% of the levy, and of course, community ed is about 3.5. That's how it breaks out between each of the areas. When you look at the general fund and how much is really property tax supported, meaning just the people in our district, it's only about 11%. We are heavily dependent on state aid and other grants. Community education is property tax supported by 21%. And then 80% is state and other, and I didn't break out the other, but they need to, a lot of participation fees come in community education in the different programs. And debt service is the opposite. The state only supports us by about 13%, and our property tax piece of it is supported by 87% by our taxpayers. Our proposed levy increase is $1 million, slightly over, or 12.56%. Changes to the levy, there were no changes to levy formulas this, as you know, the session ended with no changes, so there are no changes. We had an enrollment increase, which will affect your general ed area. And then the facility adjustment piece has ended in the general ed area. That bond has come off, so we no longer will be paying that back to the debt service area. So we will have our full capital for the first time since I've been here next year. The community education fund. The school age care was corrected after the proposed levy limits were certified in September. The state actually made that error. The correction totaled $27,345. The commissioner sent us a letter saying that they corrected the error on our behalf. It had about a 0.38% change to the levy, very small. The debt service fund, of course, the formula does require us to levy 5% more than our bond payments. When the fund balance gets too large, the state does decrease that amount needed. But this year, because of the abatement bond, we asked to keep our fund balance. And of course, we've added the abatement bond for the parking lots to the debt service fund this year. And that is I believe a 15-year bond. Our tax base trend, I mentioned this in September that Ellers told me that we were looking at a 30% change in our tax base. So our RMV changed by 28.5%, and our NTC percent is 30.1%. So our tax base grew a lot. We don't control the tax base and how that grows. All we know is it grows.
So you're referring to assessed property value going up
People moving in.
as well as new development, new housing, so the property.
Yes,
I guess, well, went up in the community.
yes,
Okay.
yes. The impact of the levy for Princeton residents, this is just a snapshot. I'm looking at payable 21, so if you look at payable 22 to 23, the estimated change, if you had $150,000 value property and it stated 150,000, it was a negative 13% decrease. From 21, it's actually a negative almost 20% in all categories, the 250 and the 350. And you can see for commercial that this is showing. Causes for property tax increase or decreases is changes in market value, changes in class rates, changes in state legislation, and voter approved referendums. We have changes in market value are discussed at a local board review in the spring at the counties. So if you have a question about your value, that's where you go as a county. And then of course, final taxable market value reflects homesteading exclusion, and that depends on the value of your home. I want everybody to remember that there are property tax programs out there, and I have just listed them here. We got the Minnesota property tax refund. It's existed since the 1970s. We've got the special property tax refund. Any gross tax increase of 12%. Some people are eligible for that, depending on their annual income. Then we have the senior citizen property tax deferral. That's for people ages 65 and over. And then there's some other property tax programs. The one thing I'd like to mention is the school building ag credit has now hit in this next tax cycle. There's 70% for our school building funds. So, all right. So tonight the board will be voting on a resolution for ISD 477 for a total certified levy of 9.1 million, or a 12.56% increase. So at this time, the public can comment if they so choose.
Hi, my name is Stacey Marcourt. I'm wearing a different hat. I am not with the city. I am a resident of Baldwin Township, and I just had two questions. Mainly for the record, because I get asked a lot this question. So currently, we have two current levies on our taxes. And I was wondering if I could get an idea of when they're supposed to expire.
You mean the building bonds,
It says water approved levies and then other.
other levies, those don't come up. Those are the state set by the state of Minnesota, so those are ongoing. Your voter approved levies, so the elementary school was 2014 when that bond was sold, and that's a 20-year bond.
So we will have this levy on ours for another,
2000, no,
and then the other approved levy that you were talking about, the mandated one, that is just always ongoing, and that's based on.
yeah, your general fund and community education, those are in your other levy portion, they're not voter approved.
Right.
Yeah, those are our standard levies set by the state of Minnesota.
And is there going to be any voter referendums coming in 2023?
I cannot answer that question. Any board
Yeah,
chair?
I can speak to it. I mean, the board constantly needs to review facility needs throughout the district. As you likely know, the board went out for a referendum last fall for major upgrades to the high school and the intermediate school, and that failed. And the board is still analyzing options for the future. Our high school is our by far our oldest facility, and we believe needs some updates, but we haven't determined what those are and if we would go out to the public. It really is still in that kind of the early stages of analyzing where we're at.
Okay, so going forward, because I get this question a lot too, is how is a taxpayer, especially because it's not a voting year, until the presidential election. What's the best way for them to get that information, knowing if there's going to be a vote, when there's going to be a vote, where they vote? It was a concern a couple years ago when we voted. I called my township and they couldn't even tell me if there was a vote or where there was a vote. And I did get a hold of the school district and I did get my answers, but the normal person doesn't necessarily know. They call their township. That's what I did. And I worked for a governmental body and that's what I thought. So I just want to know how I can help get that communication out so people are aware if there's going to be one and like where it would be, how to get information on it, things like that.
Well, I mean, certainly follow, these are public meetings, so, you know, anything, any decisions related to a bond would happen at this meeting. And it would be discussed for, I would imagine, quite a few meetings before the board would vote on it. If the board would determine that they, if they voted to go out to the public for a referendum, then there would be several ways that we would communicate. We would utilize union times. We would do a robust communications out on our website and the internet. We would send home mailers to every household in the district that would have that information on it.
So that in particular is very important because last time they didn't do that. It only went through the Tiger bulletin or whatever that's called. Because I specifically asked that question, because not every homeowner did get a mailing on it, only if you were affiliated with the Tiger Connection. And at the time, I didn't even know what the Tiger Connection was.
I think we went to every district household because I don't have any kids in school and
Yeah, I don't either, and
I got one
and I
in
didn't
mail.
get one, and so that's why I had called the school, and they said, no, it's only through you would have gotten it through the Tiger Connection, I think it's called. And I was like, I don't even know what that is, so, maybe just.
Yeah,
to
I can
make it
honestly say
aware.
that really confuses me because we made a very intentional decision to make sure that we sent a mailer to every single household in the district and worked with the post office
Okay.
to make sure that that happens.
I know I do appreciate that, and I'm glad that that is the stance. Our community in particular, we had a meeting, or we talked about it amongst ourselves, and the only people that knew about it were the ones that had kids in school. None of the other people who didn't have kids even knew that there was a vote. So I just wanted to communicate that and make that known, that that's really important. To make sure that every property owner gets it, whether they have a kid in school or not. So that's all I have.
That's good to hear.
Thank you.
It's
That is
actually
very good.
super frustrating to hear too, because we spent so much time
That was a big goal.
communicating and. having
Yes.
meetings.
Yeah, and I can say as a resident and as a governmental official, I do appreciate that. I can just tell you from experience that that didn't happen on the
Yeah,
last.
it's good to, it's
So,
good.
just letting you-
It's good to get the feedback.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there any other comments? All right. There are no citizens' comments then, if we are moving on, and we'll move on to school board committee reports, starting with Don.
I had a community ed meeting.
Jim?
I had no meetings. I just wanted to express my gratitude to be on this board. The board is exceptional in that you show respect to one another all the time. And we never, ever veered away from kids first. And when there were disagreements, they were done respectfully. The discussions are wonderful, so it was kind of hard for me not to run again, because I knew I'd miss it. But also, when I was done, I'd be 82 and I didn't know if I would be allowed to drive.
We can always.
So there were a couple of things going on, but I want to express my gratitude to all of you, and to Ben. Can't imagine a better superintendent. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I had no meetings other than agenda planning.
Finance committee prior to this meeting tonight. And I also attended multiple band concerts and choir concert. It's good times.
The end of November, one of our first snowfalls, we actually went for the tours or attempted to go to the tours for the career and technical ed with ICS and World Architects. We did make it to Tech High School, which was incredible. If you've not seen Tech High School, you need to go look at it. Of course, that's a new building and they designed it very intentionally around their career academies. It was awesome. It was a great tour. And unfortunately, we couldn't make the rest of the swing through the cities because of the weather, but we are going to be taking virtual one. Is it Shakopee? Ben?
Shakopee is our next one, and then after that, then we'll discuss, what are our next steps, if we
Yeah.
want to, I'd imagine we might want to go on a couple more.
Yeah, it was so eye-opening to see for me. And it got me even more excited about career academies, so. There'll be some good stuff coming out of that. Then I had agenda planning and Melissa and I have started our mentor meeting, so. We just started yesterday, so. It'll be good. Chad?
Congratulations, Ben.
Thank you.
Yes.
But yeah, at a finance meeting, just before this meeting, and then I also attended the Jazzy Bang, I'm not sure what the standing concert, so.
Okay, and we need student council report.
So I don't remember if I mentioned this last time or not, but right now, student council, specifically the CC4L committee, has been focusing on doing different interviews with different teachers and different jobs around the community. And I think that ties in well with the career academies. Like that's the reason we started doing it. And we have a few of those uploaded right now, but there's gonna be more of those uploaded onto the district Instagram. And the focus is just on getting to go out into the community and also asking different teachers why they chose the career that they did and what they did to get there. So it's more applicable than just posting an infographic. It's something that's visual. And then another thing we've been focusing on is the Princeton 5, which is the 5 traits that employers look for. So one trait example, it might be accountability, and then there'll be like an announcement about it and just a reminder to keep those traits in mind for future jobs. And those are like the posters that they have up in all the classrooms.
That's awesome. Yes. Thank you. Well, speaking of band concerts, I am on my way to a grandchild. concert, and so I am turning the meeting over to Deb.
All right.
And happy holidays to you all.
You too.
And
Drive careful.
yes,
Thank you.
you're welcome, Jim.
I appreciate it.
All right, I guess we go on to the superintendent report then.
All right, well, I'll echo that. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas. It's a great time of year. As you may imagine, the weather will be front of mind this evening and tomorrow. So when I get home, we'll set up camp and start doing that work. Unfortunately, we've had more than what we would like to have by this time of year. Lots of, late nights or mornings trying to make really tough decisions. And, those are the things that, no, you're never gonna have 100% agreement on kind of deal. I think it's really important for people to know that we serve 12 townships. And I think I saw at one time like 350 some square miles, or I can't remember what they said. A huge area. So, if people are driving in town and they're like, oh, the roads aren't so bad, I need people to realize, there's a lot of country roads, dirt roads, with lots of ice. Our district starts as just basically north of Zimmerman and goes all the way north, all the way to, almost to Malacca. And, then you go east and west. I mean, that's a pretty big geographic area. So when we're looking at, weather decisions, we're looking at the whole, not just the city. And we're looking at 50 to 60 of our buses trouncing around all parts of the country. So that's that. I do want to acknowledge Jim. Jim, it's been a pleasure, outstanding. I was kind of like your kid, or sometimes I felt like I was sometimes your dad. I didn't quite know. We would go back and forth on that. But you, I mean, I tell you what, you served our district in so many different ways. As a teacher, my goodness, 30, 40 years. 30 years. Yeah, in so many different capacities. Leadership as a teacher. Fought for teachers' rights, and I really admire that, and brought your perspectives to the board, and you're just super strong school board members. So just know, just because you're getting off the board, that doesn't mean you're not still, part of us, and you still stop in, say hi, we still do coffee and those kinds of things.
As long as I can walk, I'll sell.
Okay.
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah.
And drive.
Yeah.
And I drive. Well, I can always get somebody to drive me in. I suppose. I've got a key to the elevator.
And, also excited, have Melissa on board. At our next meeting, we'll be passing the torch. You'll be getting sworn in, along with some incumbents that will start another term. They'll get sworn in as well. And, we'll start another 4-year journey. I think that we have a pretty strong mentor program we just started a few years ago. And I can't tell you how many times I've been asked from superintendents in other districts for a copy of ours. Because they think it's, there's not a whole lot of them out there. So I think it's pretty good. And there'll be lots of, sit down meetings with different department heads and just trying to get an understanding of the full district. And Deb will help facilitate that. Also, speaking of board members, I think you all know that we have the MSBA Leadership Conference coming up, which is an important part of what we do as well. So continue to plan on that, and we'll get organized around that after the new year. We had a pretty robust finance committee meeting tonight. Lots of items. It's getting to that time of year where we're starting to probably plan more for next year in a lot of ways than we are even for this current year. The budget planning process, setting parameters, we'll be bringing that to the full board probably late January or early February. And we're gonna set our best guess for parameters, but just please know that some of those things may be subject to change. For example, we'll have to set our best guess for a possible increase from the state well before they adjourn. A bird walk off on that is I have had meetings with legislators in pretty powerful positions. And early indications are that they really want to provide a substantial increase to education. There'll be a lot of things that happen between now and the close of session, but early indicators are certainly different than what I've ever experienced hearing from them at the start of the game here. We talked about the land sale. I'll be briefing the board just on the progress related to that, where we stand. We're excited about a possible partnership to improve our weight room. Lots of information, and I think that the wheels will start moving quickly on that after the new year. Parking lot projects, that's all systems go. And we also have plans to address some of our restrooms at the high school to provide more private restroom options for our student body. So that, we hope to have that project happening this summer as well. So we're looking at different ways to possibly fund that. And there's a handful of different options that we'll have that Michelle will continue to explain to the finance committee and then to the full board. I also want to let the board know that I've been talking quite a bit with the high school administration and other folks regarding our career academies. I'm really excited to share that there is a lot of progress happening there. I've asked to have the action plan for the career academy process sent to me so that I can send it to all of you so you kind of see where we're at. We went from having just a couple of students interested in wanting to participate to now in the double digits to what we feel like in the next couple of months we'll have a huge increase. There's work going to be happening in all of the advisory classes where all the students will be doing an audit related to what their hopes and dreams are and strengths in terms of college and career readiness, and work happening with our staff at the high school as well. And I believe that there's a big meeting coming up at the Chamber of Commerce where we're going to be briefing all of the businesses one more time. And so there's been quite a bit of progress. We'll have to look at spending some resources to communicate this the best we can, which would include some creations of pamphlets and booklets and probably some productions of some videos and those kinds of things that I think that will be important to fully communicate to the students and the parents and the community and the businesses. So lots more to talk about. I'll end my remarks there unless you have any more questions. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Ben? All right, we'll move on. We need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Motion made by Jim. Is there a second? Second by Chad. Any questions or comments on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, agenda is approved. We'll move on to discuss and act on previous board meeting minutes from November 15th. Our only meeting in November. So would somebody like to make a motion to approve those? So moved. Motion's been made by Don. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Eric. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, minutes are approved. Consent agenda. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented? Motion been made by Chad. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Eric Manberg. Any comments or questions on those items? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed? All right, consent agenda is approved. We move on to the information part, and we have a student services update. Steve.
Yes, ma'am. Let's see if I'm able to do this.
Michelle could.
I was saying much, Steve. I was just
Thanks,
thinking
Derek.
that. Looks good, Steve, though.
I was shocked. Sorry.
Me too. There's lots of buttons to push, and I always push the wrong one.
Look at that.
I'm like Michelle.
Yeah.
Rest of Michelle.
Look, I did it, so that's good. So, my name is Steve Mile, I'm the Director of Student Services, and it's an honor to be here. A year ago, I didn't really know what I was doing, and now a year later, I know a little bit more of what I'm doing, so that's wonderful. So, you know, some of the things that we're going to be talking about today is, well, it's sensitive. So we're going to be talking about the ALC, special education, onward 504 and homeless. So a couple of the things that highlights from the ALC, like Barb said, we had 23 students that graduated from the ALC. And looking back at past data of graduates, that's up quite a bit. So we were full to capacity the entire year, which our full capacity is about 33 students, 33 students, because we only have a certain amount of seat base that we that the kids can attend. Open Doors for Youth, that continued. That's a fantastic partnership that we have. Open Doors for youth that are in transition, that are experiencing homelessness. You know, it's interesting that the kids do, we've got about 9 or 10 kids at the ALC that uses Open Door. You know, and they don't consider them homeless. They themselves don't consider them homeless, which I find is really interesting. So we've also our pre-employment program that's been ramping up, and I'll get into that in just a little bit. The dedication of our staff, I wanted to highlight that because we're small when it comes to numbers, but I'll put my staff up against any of the other staff that's within the district. Dedicated people that just give them their all. So those are some of the areas of at the ALC. Here's some of our graduates. So there's about 16, 17 of them that are in there. And this was my first graduation that I've ever really, other than my own, of course, but this was the first year actually going and being part of it and watching these kids. I knew a lot of these kids while they were in middle school, you know, and to see them going from, you know, middle school all the way up to high school graduates, it was a lot of fun. So those are some of the kids. And one of the other things that we're really instilling in the kids, it's one of the big rocks, which is connecting them to the community so that we can strategically establish and maintain meaningful relationships with their kids. You know, a lot of the times the kids at the ALC don't understand the purpose of getting that piece of paper. And our job that we've really taken to is how do we realize that, how do they understand it? If I get this piece of paper, I can do other things. Some of the things that we've done is we've taken the kids out to feed my starving children. We've had the military, all the different branches, most of the different branches of the military come in and talk about futures for their kids, for our kids. Central Minnesota Jobs and Training Services. This was part of the pilot program we were told that we had to do because our graduation rates were so low. And it's really turned into just a fantastic program. Minnesota, Central Minnesota Jobs and Training Services, they come in twice a month and help out the kids that to get them connected to jobs that are out in the field. Atlas Staffing, they're coming in January so that they can see the benefit of, okay, if I get this piece of paper, what can it take me to? And then we're also going to St. Cloud to construct tomorrow, which helps kids. It's all about construction. It's all about the labor unions and the different opportunities that they have at the labor unions. This is a picture of the kids at the kids, I call them kids, at Feed My Starving Children. So we continuously, we're still serving all the different learning models, which is in person, online, and then we also have independent studies. We continue to support the student pantry to the point of which goes to the next one, the increased connection to community supports. The amount of community support that we received for the Princeton pantry was just overwhelming, to the point that we had to say we can't take anymore, just because of the fact we didn't have enough space for everything. And you know, the Princeton pantry just supplies kids from preschool if they need it, all the way up to the ALC and to the high school. So continued relationship with Open Doors for Youth. You know, they come every Tuesday. They were here today. We've got a case manager, and then we have a mental health provider that comes in there. Which the case manager really helps out with, hey, do you need food? Do you need this? What do you need? And they were really missing that one piece of the mental health. So these kids get mental health support. And it's all paid for through the Open Door. And then we're continuing with the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development, DEEDS, and MDE. You know, I'm on those, I'm on that committee, and we meet once a month in order to say, okay, what additional resources do we need, and how else can they be assistance? So it was a pilot program. It was Princeton along with I believe Minneapolis was part of the pilot program. They've taken the pilot out, and we're just a program now. So, and then they will start introducing it to to different schools. So the one I'm really excited about too is the community starts at the table. Gary Locke, Gary's, you know, the old cultural liaison. Don't tell him I said that. He's the cultural liaison, was the cultural liaison, and we brought him in, and he comes in every Wednesday. And we split up the groups. We started with 2 groups. Decided 2 groups was too many, because there's a couple of the people that were dominating the discussion, which is okay, but some of the other ones weren't allowing to be able, some of the other kids weren't able to talk. So Gary comes in and he talks about, you know, how is, you know, what's your future look like? And you know, he talks about flight and fight and fawn, and he really connects with the kids to the point that we were a little apprehensive at first. I didn't know how it was going to go, for honest truth. I didn't know how it was going to go. And the kids actually look forward to it. And they're like, you know, is Gary coming today? Yeah. So here's a couple pictures from school. So it's good to see the kids. They were doing a skit day that day in science. Special education, we're going to continue to focus on high leverage practices. Lauren Johnson, who is the special ed coordinator through Rum River, is working with both the MTSS teams and special education. We've revised the PLC time to increase collaborative work across the district. And then we're going to continue to focus on student learning across categorical disabilities. Our sped rate, graduation rate declined a little bit down to 69.4. But as Barb said, we did graduate from the continuous improvement plan. We were supposed to get out of it last year, but because of COVID, they were nice enough to let us stay on another year. And so we're past that, and then we're going to continue the with the deeds program in the Minnesota Department of Education. Onward, Onward is continues to expand with the community experiences and focus on the transition of the competencies and social skills. We have there's about 5-6 students that are there right now. We've got more in the pipeline, so there are other kids that are coming. We graduated 3 from last year, so which is fantastic. So, and they really do a great job with providing they're kind of our the work. I mean, they take all the stuff, all the food out to the Princeton pantry, and they organize it, and they do a really fantastic job. So Abby does a great job over there. Homeless support, talked a lot about that. We're still part of a regional collaborative group. We've got the additional resources for the homeless. We've increased our connection with Open Doors for Youth. Again, they meet weekly. And they're at the ALC, and then they also go to the high school too. So they're 2 to 3 hours, 3 to 4 hours at the ALC, and then 2 to 3 hours at the high school. So they meet with a number of kids at the high school too. And then they've had a few different, 1st of October, they had an Open Door for Youth. They had a thing at the Civic Center in which I attended to that. So our site goals. So we're looking to increase our math up to 20% and our MCAs for reading up to 70%. Our reading last year really, we met in the reading just because of the fact that the students that came over were really good readers and just blew it out of the water. So that's fantastic. How we're going to do that is increase alignment of content used at the ALC and the high school. Continue to create formative and summative assessments in the areas of math, English, and the pre-employment skills. Pre-employment skills that's done through our can't think of it. One of the groups that Sarah Moffitt teaches. So it'll come to me in a little bit. Increase positive social interactions across environments, increase awareness of the homeless needs in Princeton community, and identify effective research-based practices in alternative ed. So, and the way that we're going to achieve those is to continue to align the content, participate in DEED and MDE, access and organize instructional materials for students with cognitive impairments, create learning targets and access materials in the area of SEL, personal development. That's it. Personal development. That's the one Sarah Moffitt does. Continue to build relationship with Open Doors, and then access training in the areas of effective intervention strategies for students in alternative programs. So that's the update. Y'all have any questions?
Steve, do you, our homeless population, do you see, has that increased, decreased?
What's interesting is, I think it's pretty much our homeless, the reporting of it has decreased since right around COVID. I would say in 2019, we had, I'm just guessing without looking at it, we probably had 85 kids that were identified as homeless. And it's through 2020, it went down. But it's slowly, but it's last year, I think we had about 35 kids that were families that were identified as homeless. And this year it's creeping back up. So Yeah, it's interesting to see these kids that they don't really even understand that they're homeless. You know, the kids that, you know, if I come over and sleep on Eric's couch, oh, I'm not homeless. I got a roof over my head, so I'm not homeless. So we have a lot of kids, especially at the ALC, that they, you know, they couch surf, and that's what they do. So, but they don't want to be identified as homeless. Because they, you know, they don't think that they are. But I would say it's getting the identification out of exactly what that means out to the people.
Yeah.
So, and open doors for youth as a, you know, they're a fantastic program to work with. They really are. The amount of supports that they give our kids and the amount of resources that they give our kids is just tremendous. So. Yeah. Anything else?
Any questions?
Good job.
I think
Thanks,
it's
Sean.
really important to acknowledge his unique role in the school district,
Yeah.
as you've seen here. I mean, he kind of is a catch-all of a lot of different things.
Yeah.
There's a, you know,
How many staff members are there at the ALC?
Let's see, we have 3 teachers, 1 counselor, and Jessica, my admin secretary. So there's 5 of us.
Are the classes, are the kids divided into classes or like
Yes,
smaller
sir.
groups?
Yep. So we have anywhere from 2 to 3 school seat-based classes that are going on. And then during those times, then they also have the access to online. So they have up to 5 seat-based classes. And then they have the opportunity to take up to 2. That's the benefit and the difference between the ALC and the online at the high school, you know, the credit recovery. Because of the fact that we are an alternative learning center, you know, if Brian here passes health. He does an online class in health. We have the ability to then go in and because we are alternative, I can then put in another class for Brian so that he gets that credit. So at the high school, you can only earn so many credits, but at the ALC, you can earn, you know, as long as you're continuously working, you can earn credit. So. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
thanks. Really cool.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our first action item, middle school tennis court bids. Seems kind of funny talking about the tennis court and the eve of a blizzard, but.
Danny, we're
Oh,
finding
well.
problems right now.
Make a motion to accept the bid from
BCI.
BCI for the middle school tennis courts.
Second.
Motion's been made by Eric, seconded by Jim. Any comments or questions? We will vote by roll call for this, starting with Don.
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
All right. Let's see, now we have the 2021 levy pay.
No, it should, she didn't change the title. It should
be
say
22.
223.
22-23.
I didn't catch that.
Gotcha.
Mine says P23, so.
It does on the attachments.
Yeah, the attachments. Anybody want to make a,
I'll make a motion to accept the 2022 levy pay 2023 as presented.
right? Is there a second? Motion's been made by Eric, seconded by Chad to approve the 2023 levy resolution as presented in our packet. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll also vote by roll call on that, Jim?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
All right. That passes. We'll go on to combined polling places resolution. Motion made by Chad. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Don. Any comments or questions? I had a question. Why are we doing this now?
The Sherburne County called and asked us to do it because of their timelines of
Oh,
all
okay.
that is so.
Okay.
It's also state law. It came out in, our MPSCA.
Yeah,
So it's not on the,
you have to do it by December 30th. We actually have been doing it with our January.
Yeah,
So we moved it up
Just
for
moved it up.
Sherburne County.
okay. That's what I was wondering. Okay.
And this is done just hypothetically, if we were gonna have a vote next year,
Mhm,
which we
yeah.
don't know if we will or not.
Yeah, on an off year.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, questions are answered. Another resolution, so we'll vote by roll call, starting with Eric.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
yes,
Yes,
All right, thank you. That resolution passes. We have no additions to the agenda. We have our organizational meeting on the first Tuesday of January, which is gonna come really quick.
First day back from school.
I know. Well, we're all working in between.
Yeah.
One of us has to-
Yeah, we don't get it off. Are you feeling the pain?
Yeah.
And then our regular.
His
board
main
meeting after
office
that.
is all working because
Right.
people want payroll.
That's right. All right, no further items. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I think you gotta let Jim make this one.
Oh, there we go.
I make a motion to adjourn this meeting
All right, you want
and
to
all
hit the
further
hammer?
meetings as well.
Make it official.
Thank you. I've always wanted to do this.